Which one?
We begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Yud Beis, Amid Beis, 12 lines up from the bottom of the Amid. Beis Hashem Yisbarach. We will learn the last Daf of Masechta Sanhedrin, the Siyum of Masechta Sanhedrin. So this is a Gemara that goes back to what it said in the Mishnah, the halachas of the Irani Dachas. So one of the things the Mishnah and the Braisa also says about the Irani Dachas is that the Ma'aseh Sheni, which is in the Irani Dachas, that has to be brought to Yerushalayim, and you eat it there in Yerushalayim. That Ma'aseh Sheni has to be burnt with the Irani Dachas. Says that Ma'aseh Sheni does. Again, the Mishnah says that what do you do with it? You gonzu. That it's something that you have to hide it. You have to bury it. It's not burnt together with the Irani Dachas. Gonzu. Okay, so the Gemara here will explain this halacha of the Mishnah, but it first brings another Mishnah, or a Braisa actually, that talks about the status of Ma'aseh Sheni, and then it will explain why the halacha is regarding this Ma'aseh Sheni that you gonzu, that has to be buried. So Tanan Hasam, or Tanya Hasam, we learned a Braisa. Isa shel Ma'aseh Sheni, the dough of Ma'aseh Sheni, Petura min hachala. You don't have to separate chala from it. Divrei Rab Meir. Chachamim say even the dough of the Ma'aseh Sheni you do have to separate chala. So what's the explanation of this machlokes? Amar Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda says machlokes, the argument between Rab Meir and the Chachamim is b'Ma'aseh Sheni b'Yerushalayim. This is only regarding Ma'aseh Sheni that a person already brought up to Yerushalayim, which is where you eat it, and there he made a dough out of this. The Rab Meir Savar, so Rab Meir's opinion is Ma'aseh Sheni, Mammon Gavoya. Ma'aseh Sheni is a money that belongs to the Eibishter. It has Kedusha in it, it belongs to Hashem, and therefore it's not chayiv in separating challah from it. In order to be chayiv to separate challah, the pasuk says by challah, reishis arisai seichem. Should be it's yours, but not if it's mammon gavoya. Rabbanan Savri, Rabbanan's opinion is mammon hadyedu, that it's in Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim you can eat it. True, you have to eat it only in Yerushalayim, but you can eat it. So therefore over here, in Yerushalayim, it's mammon hedyet, it's yours, and therefore you do have to separate the challah. But the Ma'aseh Sheni that is in other places and cities in Eretz Yisrael, it's not brought to Yerushalayim. Divrei Akol Potter. Over here, everybody will agree that you potter from separating the Ma'aseh Sheni, because outside of Yerushalayim, where you can't eat it unless you redeem it and you take the money to Yerushalayim, but you can't eat the Ma'aseh Sheni itself, so that's definitely Mammon Gavoya. It's the Ma'aser that can't be eaten, it belongs to Hashem, so over here everybody will agree that it'll be potter from Challah. That's one Pshat Rashi says. Another Pshat Rashi says is that, not mitzad the fact that it's Mammon Gavoya, but this dough of this Ma'aseh Sheni that's here anywhere outside of Yerushalayim, since B'shas Maisa, when you make the dough, which is what's called Gilgul Ha'isa, that's when you make the dough, that's the time when the Chi of Challah comes. If at that moment, when you make the dough, you can't eat it, so then you're going to be potter from Challah, because it says that it has to be something that you could eat. So even if this dough that you just made, later you take it to Yerushalayim, and there you could eat it. But if B'shas you made the dough, you will potter from Challah, it doesn't become Chayiv and Challah again. So therefore, B'gvulin, everybody will agree that you potter from giving the Challah. Okay, so now coming back to our Mishnah. So most of Rav Yosef asks on this, what did it say in the Mishnah? Ma'aseh Sheni, the Kisvei HaKodesh, in the city of the Irani Dachas. If you have Ma'aseh Sheni or Kisvei HaKodesh, you gonzu. So what do you do with this? That you have to hide it, bury it. It doesn't get burnt, but you can't eat it. It's not. You have to burn it, or you have to hide it. That is. Okay, so now the question is, why is this the case? Why can't you eat this Ma'aseh Sheni from the city of the Irani Dachas? B'mayaskina, what is the case over here? What kind of Irani Dachas are we talking about? If you would think to say, we're talking about a situation where Yerushalayim itself would be a Irani Dachas, and over there we're talking about the Ma'aseh Sheni that's in Yerushalayim, in this city, Yerushalayim, that's Irani Dachas. But the question is, mihavi Irani Dachas. Could Yerushalayim ever become an Irani Dachas? It can't, because Vatanya, we learned in the Braisa, Asar Dvarim Nemiru Yerushalayim. There were 10 things that were said about the city of Yerushalayim that are unique and different from other cities in Eretz Yisrael. V'zu achas mehen. And one of them is that Eina Nasis Irani Dachas, that the city of Yerushalayim itself cannot become an Irani Dachas. The Gemara learns it out from a pasuk. Only a city that's divided amongst the Shvatim of the Yidden becomes the Irani Dachas. and the city of Yerushalayim is not divided amongst the Shvatim, and therefore Yerushalayim cannot become a Irani Dachas. So we're not talking about the Ma'aseh Sheni of the city of Yerushalayim, because it's not an Irani Dachas. So, ve'ela, what are we talking about? Be'ir Acheres. We're talking about another city in Eretz Yisrael, where there's Ma'aseh Sheni from that city. And what happened? V'askua legavo. The person is bringing the Ma'aseh Sheni from another city to Yerushalayim, and then after he brings this Ma'aseh Sheni to Yerushalayim, that city turns into an Irani Dachas. So if that's the case, why wouldn't we say that once the Ma'aseh Sheni is brought into Yerushalayim, the halacha is, and this is actually midrabanan, that once it's inside the walls of the city of Yerushalayim, it gets absorbed into the walls of the city of Yerushalayim, and then you don't take it out of there, and you have to leave it there, and it has to be eaten there. You can't take it out. So if that's the case, it should stay in the city of Yerushalayim and you eat it there. Why does it say Yigonzu, that you have to take it and bury it? Why bury it? Once it's in the walls of the city of Yerushalayim, even if later it turns out that this Ma'aseh Sheni comes from a person that's from the Irani Dachas, so it's the shalal of the city of the Irani Dachas, but it doesn't matter. It's already in the walls of the city of Yerushalayim, and that's it. It's absorbed there, and you can eat it there. So therefore the Gemara concludes, seemingly the only way to explain our mission would be Bigvulin, that we're talking over here about this Ma'aseh Sheni that did not come into the city of Yerushalayim. It's Ma'aseh Sheni from a city in Eretz Yisrael, and this is the Ma'aseh Sheni that's still there, not in Yerushalayim. And what does the Mishnah say? The Ketani Yigonzu. The Mishnah says that you have to bury it. But the question is, why do you have to bury it? According to what the Gemara said before, according to what Rav Chisda explained, the Ma'aseh Sheni that's Begvulin is Mama Gavoya. That's something that everybody agrees that it's potter from challah. Why is it potter from challah? Because it's not even yours, or either because it's mama gavoya or because it's not yours. So if it's potter from challah and it's not yours, so then it shouldn't also be part of the spoils of the city of the Irani Dachas that has to be burnt, and therefore you don't want to burn it. So you because it's Ma'aseh Sheni, so you bury it, but it shouldn't have to be buried at all. You should be allowed to eat it because it doesn't belong to the person of the Irani Dachas. So why does it say that Yigonzu? So this itself that it says Yigonzu proves that it is part of the spoils of the city of the Irani Dachas. Elamai, you don't want to mamish burn it, so you hide it. So the Gemara answers, "Lo, that's not the pshat. That's not the case in the Mishnah." I can tell you when the Mishnah says that you take the Ma'aseh Sheni and you can't eat it, you have to bury it. The reason, the Ir Acheres. We're talking about the Ma'aseh Sheni from a city in Eretz Yisrael, not Yerushalayim. And then what happened is Vaskul Legava. It was brought up already into the city of Yerushalayim. Our question was, if it was brought into the city of Yerushalayim, once it gets absorbed into the walls of the city of Yerushalayim, so then you can eat it there. You don't take it out. You don't have to bring it back to the Irani Dachas. The case of here is Shenitma. This Ma'aseh Sheni that he brought into Yerushalayim, it became Tameh. Once it becomes Tameh, Ma'aseh Sheni, which is Tameh, you don't eat. Right? Also learn from a pasuk, V'lo bi'arti mimenu betameh. So once it becomes Tameh, you have to bury it. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. Again, Rashi says, the Gemara will soon ask the obvious question, if we're talking about a case where this Ma'aseh Sheni is Tameh, and that's the reason why you have to bury it and you can't eat it, this has really nothing to do with Irani Dachas. Doesn't matter where it comes from. Any Ma'aseh Sheni just has to be buried. Okay, so the Gemara will eventually refute this pshat. But first, the Gemara asks another question. The fact that it became Tameh, why is that a problem? V'lifrikei, so it becomes Tameh. What do you do with Ma'aseh Sheni that's Tameh? You could redeem it. And then the money, you will then go and buy with it other food and you eat it in Yerushalayim. Rabbi Elazar said, from where do you know that Ma'aseh Sheni that became Tameh, that it could be redeemed, even in the city of Yerushalayim? And that's even though usually Ma'aseh Sheni is, you redeem it only before it comes into the city of Yerushalayim. Once Ma'aseh Sheni is in Yerushalayim, you're not supposed to redeem it. Then you have to eat the Ma'aseh Sheni itself. But there's an exception to this, as the Gemara is going to learn out from the pasuk. If after it's in the city of Yerushalayim it became Tameh, then you could redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni even once it was brought to the city of Yerushalayim. What's the source for this? Because Talmud Lamed, the pasuk says, that the reason why you're redeeming the Ma'aseh Sheni is because you can't carry it. That's the simple pshat. But once it's brought into the city of Yerushalayim, you can't redeem it anymore. But the Gemara Darshans, the word se'esei has another pshat. That ve'ein se'es, the word se'esei could also mean ela achila, that you can't eat it. Shenemar ve'yisa maseis me'es ponov. And there maseis, this is when Yosef was giving his brothers to eat, and it says the term maseis, which means food. So therefore, from this you see that leisuchal se'esei means that the ma'aseh sheni that you can't eat, even in the city of Yerushalayim, you could redeem it. So you're saying over here that we're talking about ma'aseh sheni that became tamei, and therefore he can't eat it. But why can't he redeem it? Answers the Gemara. Hacha b'ma'askina. In the case over here is b'lakuach. When it says in the Mishnah ma'aseh sheni, it's not talking about ma'aseh sheni itself. It's talking about what was bought from the money of ma'aseh sheni, or from the ma'aseh sheni, not the ma'aseh sheni itself. But the Gemara still asks on that, so why would this be any different? V'lifrikei, he could still redeem even this that he bought from ma'aseh sheni, and then it became tamei. It still should also be redeemed. It's not, as we learned in the Mishnah, it says halakuach bekesef ma'aseh sheni or bekesef ma'aseh shenitma. Not only the ma'aseh sheni itself, but even what was bought from the money of ma'aseh sheni that became tamei, even in Yerushalayim, yipadeh. Even that could be redeemed as well. So the Gemara answers, no, this we could say, Ke Rabbi Yehuda. We're following Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, the Amar Yikaveh. Rabbi Yehuda says that this halacha, that Ma'aseh Sheni could be redeemed when it becomes Tameh, is only the Ma'aseh Sheni itself, not a secondary Ma'aseh Sheni. Not once it became, it's the money that you use to buy from it other fruits, other food. That's not the Ma'aseh Sheni itself. Once that becomes Tameh, that you can't eat anymore. That has to be buried. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Okay, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, we could explain that we're talking about food that was bought with the money of Ma'aseh Sheni. It became tamei, and you can't eat it, and you can't redeem it either. Okay, but now the Gemara goes back to the question that I mentioned before. But if that's what our Mishnah is talking about, when it says that you have to bury it, you can't eat it because it became tamei, ihachi, if that's the pshat in the Mishnah, ma'ir irani dachas. Why are we talking about a case of irani dachas? Afile the almanami. In any case, when you have ma'aseh sheni that's brought into Yerushalayim, in this case that it's what was bought from the money of ma'aseh sheni, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can't eat it, you have to bury it. So why does the Mishnah Dafke speak about irani dachas? So therefore the Gemara refutes this pshat. Elo, says the Gemara, what's the pshat in the Mishnah when it talks about ma'aseh sheni from the irani dachas that has to be buried, you can't eat it? Loilam betohir. We're talking about the ma'aseh sheni, which is tahir, that's brought from a city of the irani dachas. It was brought to Yerushalayim, and after it's inside the walls of the city of Yerushalayim, now that city that it comes from is the irani dachas, and what it's saying is you must bury it. But the question, what was the question Gemara asked before? There's a concept midrabanan kol tu mechitzis. Once it's inside the walls of Yerushalayim, you can eat it. You don't have to take it back to burn or to bury anywhere. That was their question. So the Gemara answers, the case here is the nafal mechitzis. After it was brought into the city of Yerushalayim, the walls of the city fell down. And in this case, once the walls of the city falls down, now this halacha midrabanan, that it stays there, and that you don't have to bring it back to the irani dachas, does not apply, because the walls of the city fell down. Rava said, Amar Rava, mechitze lechol da'iraisa. The halacha of the city of Yerushalayim, that it has to have the actual wall up around it, and that is for the din menat to eat the ma'aseh sheni inside the walls of the city. So menat when you have the walls around it, so then in that you could eat the ma'aseh sheni there. Likloit the rabbanon. Now the fact that once it's absorbed inside the city, that you don't take it out anymore regarding redeeming it or regarding anything else, the rabbanon will gaze it, that once it's inside the city, that's it, it's absorbed it. Now you must eat it there. That's all with the rabbanon. Now, when did the Rabbanan make this decree that once it's brought into the city of Yerushalayim, you don't take it out anymore, you must eat it there? That's kiyas nula mechitzes. That's only when the walls around the city are actually up. Kiles nula mechitzes, when the walls of the city are not up, loy. So then it doesn't have to remain inside the city. Then you can take it out. So the Gemara's conclusion is the halacha that it said in the Mishnah that the ma'aseh sheni that comes from the irani dachas, you have to bury it. It's talking about a very unique case. B'derech klal, the ma'aseh sheni from the irani dachas, if it was brought to the city of Yerushalayim, it stays there. You can eat it there. But over here, we're talking dafka about such a kind of case where it was brought to the city of Yerushalayim, and the walls of the city afterwards fell down. Once the walls of the city fell down, so then you don't have to take it as you don't have to leave it there in the city, because now this halacha that it's absorbed does not apply because the walls fell down. And so what do you do with it? You have to take it back to the Iranidachas to burn, but you don't want to burn it because it's Ma'aseh Sheni. So it's you don't want to be mezalzel in the Ma'aseh Sheni. Then that's what the Mishnah said, that you gonzu, that you have to bury it. Okay. Going on to the next thing, the Mishnah said Kisvei HaKodesh Yigonzu, that any Kisvei HaKodesh also has to be buried. Says the Gemara Masnisin Deloik Rabbi Eliezer, the Tanya Rabbi Eliezer, and a Braisa we learned Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is Kol Ir Sheyeshpa Filim Mezuzah Achas, Iranidachas that has even just one mezuzah in it, Eina Nasis Iranidachas. You cannot turn it into a Iranidachas. Shanama, the pasuk says, "V'sarafta be'esha seir v'skol shlala." You have to burn the city and all of its spoils, totally burnt. And according to Rabbi Eliezer, the mezuzah is part of the spoils of the city. He doesn't darshan that the mezuzah is called shlal shamayim, and therefore it has to be burnt together with the city. That doesn't apply to this. So it has to be burnt. And according to Rabbi Eliezer, there's no option of burying it. You have to fulfill what it says in the pasuk that it has to be burnt. We had this earlier in the Masechta. This is the reason why the Gemara said that according to Rabbi Eliezer, there was no such a thing of Iranidachas that ever happened, because every city that would be a Iranidachas potentially, there's at least a mezuzah, some sefer in it, and therefore it can't be burnt. So you can't fulfill the mitzvah of Iranidachas. Now, it's impossible. You can't burn the mezuzah. It's allowed to burn, to erase, or to burn the name of Hashem. The Mefarshim add to this. There's a famous question that Rishayim talk about this as well. Why would we say esse doiche lois esse? The esse of burning it, it should be doiche, the lois esse of not erasing Hashem's name. The answer is because not to erase Hashem's name is also a mitzvah saseh. Es Hashem lekecha tira. That's one of the answers. Rab Shimon says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chulu. So the Mishnah brought a machlokes after this. And the machlokes is what happens with this Iranidachas after it's destroyed. Rabbi Yossi Glili says that you can't do anything with it. You're not allowed to even, not only not allowed to build a city again, you're not allowed to even turn it into a garden or an orchard. Rabbi Akiva says that Leisibana Oy, the pasuk then says, don't build it again, which means you can't build it as a city, but you could plant there, you could turn it into a garden. Says the Gemara Kamiflagi, shall we say that the argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Glili is based on this concept that Rabbi Ovin said in the name of Rabbi Law. Anytime you find in the Torah, okay, so before we see the Gemara inside, the point of here is as follows. There's a concept called, we say it every day in the morning before davening, klal uprat. What does klal uprat mean? If the Torah writes something in a general sense, and then it goes on to specify more specifically, that prat is explaining what the klal is about. And then it becomes limited, that it's only according to what it says in the prat. That's the concept of klal prat. So the question is, do we apply that in the pasuk here? Over here, the pasuk says that what happens with the city, v'hoisa teil oilam. It's saying a mitzvah saseh, that this city should just remain a pile. And then afterwards it goes on to say a lav, loisi bana oid, it should not be built again. Now, when it says loisi bana oid, it's specifying and saying specifically that it should not be built again. So if you want to say that the prat explains the klal, that would mean that it's coming to say that you can't build there. But you could plant there, you could turn it into Ganes or Pardesim. Okay, but here comes the statement of Rabbi Avin Amar Rabbi Law. Rabbi Avin Amar Rabbi Law said that whenever you find a klal, and the klal is be'eseh, it's a klal that's a mitzvah saseh, and then the prat that follows, seemingly coming to specify and explain, but that prat is b'loy seseh, that's a loy seseh. Then ein don and oiseh b'klal prat. We don't consider it to be a klal prat. The klal prat is only if both the klal and the prat are a mitzvah saseh, or the klal and the prat are both a mitzvah loy seseh. But in this case, because the klal is a mitzvah saseh and the prat is a mitzvah loy seseh, it's considered to be two separate things. Okay, so Rashi explains that in this case over here, when it says loisi bana oid, that loisi bana oid, the way we would learn this is different kind of drasha, which we also say before davening. Kol davash hoya b'chlal v'yatzim in a klal lalamid loy lalamid alatzma yatsa el lalamid al klal kula yatsa. What does that klal mean? That it's saying in general, do not rebuild the city completely. It says Teil oilam. Then it says a detail. It takes out one klal. Loisi bana oid. What's the loisi bana oid coming to say? That you shouldn't settle the place again. Settle means in any way. Just like you're not allowed to live there, you're not allowed to live there in any way, including not to plant gardens as well there. That's how you would learn the pasuk. But it's not a klal prat. So therefore the Gemara says, this explains the machlokes of Rabbi Yossi Galili and Rabbi Akiva. The Mar is later Rabbavan. Rabbi Yossi Galili that says you're not allowed to do anything here anymore, not even to plant there either, because so he holds like what Rabbavan said. So according to Rabbavan, when it says Tei Loilam, that means you're not allowed to do anything there. And the Veloisi Bana Oid is not coming to specify, it's not a klal of prat. Adarab, it's coming to say you're not allowed to use anything there. But Umar is less later Rabbavan. But Rabbi Akiva does not hold of what Rabbi Oven said, and therefore Rabbi Akiva holds when it says Loisi Bana Oid, it's a klal of prat. And therefore the pasuk is saying only that you're not allowed to rebuild it. But you are allowed to go and plant there, Ganas or Pradesim. Says the Gemara, not necessarily is this what the explanation of the argument is. Loi. The Kulalme Islu de Rabbavan. Everybody would agree to what Rabbavan says, that this pasuk, because it's a mitzvah aseh and a mitzvah loisa aseh, it's not a klal of prat. But here, the basis of the argument is something else. There's one word in the pasuk that they're arguing about. It says loisi bana, and then it adds the word oid. Why does it add the word oid? So how do you translate the word oid? Mar Savar, according to Rabbi Yossi Galili, what does the word oid mean? Legambri. There's two ways you could translate the word oid. One way to translate the word oid is like saying lo'ilam va'ed, forever. You're never allowed to rebuild it again. But there's another way how to translate the word oid. So Rabbi Yossi Galili holds, like I just said, that oid means you should never rebuild it again. And legambri mashma. And therefore we say, like what we said according to Rab Oven, that it's not a klal of prat. It's coming to say that you should never rebuild it again. But Umar Savar, Rabbi Akiva holds, even though he agrees to Rab Oven, but he says that word oid is coming to say l'kamai shahaisa ein nivnis. The word oid has a different translation. Oid means don't go back to what it was before. Leisivna oid. Oid means again, nachamal. Don't go back to the way it was before. But it could be now planted as a garden or an orchard. So that's that word oid that tells me that over here it could be used for other things, as long as you're not rebuilding it again. We learned if you had trees in the Sirani Dachas that are already detached, asurin, they are also, they have to be burnt. Mechubarin, trees that are still attached, mutarin, they're allowed. And the Gemara brought this before already, because it says that you have to gather and burn, but not something that you have to detach first. Shal ira cheres, now here the Gemara goes into another case. There is, however, another city, Beit Lushim, Beit Mechubarim, whether the trees that are detached, whether the trees that are still connected to the ground, Asr. It's a city that's Asr. Which city is this? Ma ira cheres. Rav Chisda says, Yerichai, this is the city of Yerichai. This is the city that Yeshua and the Yidden then conquered in Yerushalayim the first. Yericha was the key to open up, to get into Eretz Yisrael, and they conquered Yericha first. And on this city, Yeshua was geyser and said that nobody should touch the city; they should not be rebuilt again, and that includes all kinds of trees there. That this city should be left alone, be given to Hashem. Right, so some Rishonim say the reason is so that even all future generations they should see that this is the city that was conquered first in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it should be left. So the Gemara brings the source of this. The pasuk there says, "Vayash ba Yeshua beisi lema." Yeshua swore and said, "Order ha'ish lefnei Hashem ashiyakum ubana seir azais es Yerichai." That curses the man that builds this city, the city of Yerichai. And then the pasuk goes on to say what the curse is, that the b'chorei, that Yizdena, that if you will rebuild it, his oldest son will die when he puts the foundation to the city. And when he puts up the doors for the city, finishing building the city, his youngest son will die. So Tanya and Abraisa we learned, Lo Yerichai al Shem Ira Cheres. You can't rebuild the city of Yerichai even if you give it a different name. And Lo Ira Cheres al Shem Yerichai. Or even also not building another city in Eretz Yisrael and you give it the name Yerichai, it also should not be built again. And the drush is because it says here in the pasuk, Ha'ira Zais es Yerichai. So these two expressions mean whether this city or even another city when you're giving it the name of Yerichai. Now the chsev, or the other gives here is uksev, that this is like the Gemara brings now what actually ended up happening, that it says in the pasuk, someone went and built another city and he gave it the name of Yerichai. Who was this? Bana Chiel Beisa Eli as Yerichai. He built this place, Beisa Eli. It wasn't Yerichai itself, but he gave it the name of Yerichai. And what happened? Ba'aviram b'chayra yasta. His oldest son Aviram died when he put the foundation for the city. Ubisagav tzidai hitzav lasel. And then when he put up the doors for the city, his youngest son Sagav passed away. So Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Ba'aviram b'chayra rasha, Aviram his b'chayra rasha lehayale lilmud. Maybe then he didn't necessarily realized, he didn't understand, he didn't learn what he did wrong, and he continued building. But Besagav Tzi'irai, Hayalei Lilmai, the Sagav, his youngest son, when he died, when he put up the doors of the city, at that point he should have realized that he's making a mistake, that he shouldn't be building the city when his youngest son dies already. So the Gemara asks on the lashon of this brayse. It says here, Aviram b'chayre was a rasha. Aviram v'Sagov ma'yavet. His two sons, Aviram and Sagov, why are they referred to as a rasha? What did they do wrong? According to Rashi's girsa, you go to see in the brayse on Sagov also that he's a rasha. So the Gemara is asking, why are his children called a rasha? So the Gemara answers, no, the word rasha does not refer to his children. Hachikama, this is what it's saying. Aviram b'chayre, Aviram his b'chayr, hayaloi, or loy hayaloi, it's the girsa over here. Loy hayaloi limait. Maybe then he didn't realize that Lo'isai Rasha, that is. His father Chiel, is the one that's the Rasha. He did not realize when his oldest son passed away. But Besagov Tzi'irai, then by his youngest son, so the gears you have here on the side of the Gemara, he should have realized that his youngest son is dying because he built this city. Now the Gemara explains another detail to this. It says Aviram was his oldest son. Any day Sagav Tzi'irai. It's self-understood that Sagav is not his oldest. Sagav is a younger son. Why is it saying that Sagav was the youngest son? It teaches me that what happened was he didn't just have two sons. He had his oldest son, and he had other children, and he kept on burying more of his children as he's building the city. Mi'aviram ad Sagav, from Aviram until his youngest son of Sagav, and still he didn't pay attention to it, and he continued building this city. And the case over there was, again, he didn't rebuild the city of Yerichai. He built another city, and he gave it the name Yerichai, and the curse of Yeshua took effect. Okay, now here the Gemara brings the context of this story in connection to Achav, because when you look in the Psukim there, where it brings this in Malachim, so it brings the story together with the kingdom of Achav. It says there in the pasuk that Achav was a rasha, and then afterwards it brings this story about Chil that built this city and his children died, and then it brings the story about Achav where there was no rain in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara explains the connection of these two stories. Achav sheshvine have. Achav was a friend of Chil. So Achav came, ve'Eliyahu, and Eliyahu and Navi as well. L'mishal b'shlama beitamya. They came to Bimenachem Avel. Beitamya means the house of an Avel. So now when they came to Bimenachem Avel, what happened was Yosef Ka'amar, Achav was sitting there and he was telling his friend Chiel, why did it happen that your children died? Dilma, maybe the reason is because Kimelet Yeshua, when Yeshua cursed that you should not rebuild the city of Yerichai, Hachilot. This is what his curse was, that Lo Yerichai al Shem Yiracheres. Don't build the city of Yerichai again, even if you give it a different name. And V'lo Yiracheres al Shem Yerichai, even to build another city, giving it with the name Yerichai, you also shouldn't do. And this is what Chil did, and this is why his children died. So Amalei Eliyahu said to Achav, yes, you're right, this is the curse of Yeshua, and that's why his children died. Now Achav spoke up and said, Amalei, Achav says to Eliyahu Navi, Hashta, Levatsa de Moshe, Leika Mekaima, I can show you that the curse of Moshe Rabbeinu was not fulfilled in me. And what is this? T'chsiv, because the pasuk says, V'sartem, V'avatem, V'goyim, if you'll go off the path and you'll serve Avodah Zareh. Uksiv, the pasuk says, V'choraf, Hashem v'chen v'atzar, as to Shemayim, David will be angry and will not allow any rain. So Achav says, look, V'ahu Gavra, this individual, referring to himself, Oikim le'avodas kechavim, I'll tell him, he put an Avodah Zareh on every row in the field, as we had earlier in the Masechta here, and v'lo shavik le'mitra le'mezel, and the rain does not even allow me to go le'mezel to go miskadle, to bow down to the Avodah Zareh, meaning that there's so much rain and it's so much blood, so much puddles that I can't even go to my Avodah Zareh. So the curse of Moshe Rabbeinu that the rain will be held up was not fulfilled. So therefore, Achav says, the curse of Moshe's student Yeshua will be fulfilled, that will say that this is the reason why his children died. This is what Achav said. So after Achav said this in front of Eliyahu, miyad, immediately, Vayemer Eliyahu, Atishbi mitoshvi Gilad, Eliyahu Navi says, Chai Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Imiyah Talam Mata V'Gaymer, that he said in the name of Hashem that there should be no more rain anymore. Boyerachmi Hidavend V'Havale Aklida the Mitra. The Eibishter gives him, to Eliyahu Navi, the keys of rain. And then the rain, it stopped, there was no rain anymore. The Kam V'Azal, and he got up and he left. And Vayid Var Hashem Elav, the Eibishter speaks to Eliyahu Navi Leim, and he tells him, Leich Mizel, leave from here, Panisa L'chak Kedma, go to the east, V'nistarta B'nachal Kris, and you should go and hide there in this place. Because he was afraid from Achav and his wife Izevel, that they shouldn't kill him for stopping the rain. So the Eibishter tells him to go and hide. And then when Eliyahu was hiding, How did he have any food to eat? The ravens brought him bread and meat every morning. Now, from where did the ravens bring him this food? They brought it to him from the kitchen of Achav himself. There's a discussion about this in another place in Gemara, how he could trust to eat this food, the kashrus of the food. But upon him, he had food to eat there, and this was what Eliyahu Hanavi davened, that there should be no rain. And then Vayihimi Kates Yamim, it was after a number of days or years, and what happened was Vayivash Anachal, the stream dried up. Kilahoya Geshem Baret, so there was no rain in the land. So Kivin the Chazad Eibush sees Diketsara Balme, there's much pain and suffering in the world. Now the Eibush wants to bring that there should be rain. But Eliyahu Hanavi is holding on to the keys of the rain. Hashem gave it away to him. So Hashem orchestrated the following, that he should give back that key to Hashem. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Vayid var Hashem Elov. Hashem speaks to Eliyahu Hanavi, and tells him, Kum leich Tzarfata. Go to Tzarfas, which is not Tzarfas as in France, but Tzarfas is a place in Eretz Yisrael. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Vayiyachad varim eila. That after this, what happens was, Chala ben Isha, Balas Habayis, that the woman was not well, the Baal Sabayis, Ba Rachmi Lemitin Law. So what happens was that now when she died, so that Eliyahu Hanavi wanted to be Mechai Mesim. Ba Rachme, he davens Lemitin Le Aklide the Tchias HaMesim. He wanted to have the keys of Hashem for Tchias HaMesim. So Amar Le, the Eibush says to him, Shalosh Maftechais, there are 3 keys, Le Nimsuru L'Shliach, that are not given over to any other Shliach. What are these keys? Shalchaya, to give birth, life. Only Hashem himself decides whether a woman gives birth or not. V'shal Geshamim, rain. V'shal Tchias HaMesim, and also Tchias HaMesim. So as it says in Chassidus, this concept of the 3 keys, everything comes from Hashem. But usually everything comes through a garment of nature. These 3 keys of these 3 things comes directly from Hashem without a levush of teva. So therefore, the Eibush tells Eliyahu Hanavi, I can't give you the key for Tchias HaMesim, because Yomru, they're going to say, Shtayim biyad Talmud, not 2 of these keys were given over to a student, to Eliyahu Hanavi, V'achas biyad Arav, and only 1 is left by the hands of the teacher, by the hands of Hashem. So I see ha v'shakal hai. Give me back the key of the rain, and I'll give you the key for Tchias HaMesim. The pasuk says, Leich hara al Achav, go and appear to Achav etna matar, and I will give rain. That's what happened. He gave back the key of the rain to Hashem, and Hashem brought the rain. This individual from Gola dashed in front of Rav Chisda and said, Mashal Deliyahu Lama David, what happened here to Eliyahu be compared to Legavre the Tarke Legale, to an individual that is locking the doors, the gates, and then he loses the key. That's what happened over here to Eliyahu Hanavi, that he closed the doors, there was no rain, and then he lost that key, and he had to give back the key of rain to the Eibush himself. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yosi in Sipairi, dashed on Eliyahu Hanavi, and he said, Abba Eliyahu, my father Eliyahu. You referred to him with this chavivis, with this expression of love. Captain Hava. He was someone that was very particular, and he would get angry. As it happened over here, when Achav spoke out against Moshe Rabbeinu, Eliyahu Hanavi got so angry that he caused that there should be no rain for a long period of time. So now after Rabbi Yosi said this, Eliyahu Hanavi used to come to Rabbi Yosi, and Ichsi Minei, he was not concealed from him, for 3 days. For Liyasa, he didn't come back. Kiyasa, when Eliyahu Hanavi finally came to Rabbi Yosi, Amalei, so Rabbi Yosi says to him, Amai lo Yasamar, why didn't the master come? Amalei, so Eliyahu Hanavi said, Captain Kodesli, because you referred to me as a captain. Amalei, so Rabbi Yosi says, look, you see right over here the way you're behaving with me, that because I said you're a captain, so for 3 days you didn't come, that proves my point that you actually are a captain. And as Mefarshim say, before he said he was a captain for this, that he spoke out against Moshe Rabbeinu, that doesn't have to mean that Eliyahu Hanavi himself was a captain. He was sticking up for Moshe Rabbeinu's covet. Over here, he spoke against Eliyahu Hanavi, and Eliyahu Hanavi did not come, so he says, you're a captain. But obviously, as it's explained in Mefarshim, the Maral explains it's not Eliyahu Hanavi for his own covet. This is by a Talmid Chacham. B'chlal, it says that he's a captain for the covet of the Eibishter. Okay, the last shtickle here in the Masechta, going back to what it said in the Mishnah, being again to the after it brings the halachas about the city of the Irani Dacha, so the Mishnah there concludes and says that you shouldn't take anything from the Chedem of the city of the Irani Dachas, and then it says Kolzman Shadasham Ba'olam, as long as there's Rishaim in the world, Charain Af Ba'olam, there's the anger of Hashem in the world. And then the Mishnah says, of the Rishaim in Olam, when the Rishaim are gone from the world, Nistalik Charain Af Min Olam, the anger of Hashem is removed from the world. So the Gemara brings a brayse that similarly says a similar thing. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a brayse, Rasha ba loilam. When the Rasha comes to the world, Charein ba loilam. So the anger of Hashem comes to the world. Shanam, the pasuk says, B'voy Rasha. When the Rasha comes in the world, boy gam boys. It comes also boys into the world, the disgrace, and v'im kolain cherpa, with the embarrassment, comes together with the Rasha into the world. So he brings the disgrace and therefore the anger of Hashem into the world. Rasha avad min ha'olam, when the Rasha is removed from the world, toiva ba'al ha'olam, then goodness comes to the world. Shenem, as the pasuk says, u'ba'avoid rishayim, when the rishayim are gone, rina. It's a time for song because then the bad of the world is removed. Tzaddik nifta min ha'olam, when a tzaddik departs from the world, ra ba'al ha'olam. So then bad things comes to the world because bad things are coming. That's why the Eibishter takes the tzaddik away before. Shenem, as the pasuk says, a tzaddik avad, the tzaddik is gone. Ve'ein ish sam alev, no one pays attention, takes to their heart. Ve'anshi chesed ne'esafim, and the people of kindness are gathered together, and there's no more kindness anymore. And be'ein mevin, they don't understand, ki mipnei hara, because of this bad that's coming in the world, nesaf tzaddik, the tzaddik died first. Tzaddik ba'al ha'olam, but when the tzaddik comes to the world, then toiva ba'al ha'olam, that's when the good comes to the world. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Zeh yenachamenu mimaseinu mi'itzvan yedeinu. This one will console us from our hands and the sad things that there is in our hands, that the tzaddik takes away all that ra from the world. Hadra nalach kol Yisrael yesh lem chelek aslika la mesechta Sanhedrin. This last point that it says here in the Masechta, that when the tzaddik ba'al ha'olam, which tzaddik is it talking about? So the Maharsha says that the tzaddik ba'al ha'olam refers to Mashiach. What the whole Perika here was about. Kol Yisrael Shalom Chelik L'Olam Haba. That's the tzaddik ba'al ha'olam when it says Zeh yenachamenu mimasenu mi'itzvin yedeinu. And Rashi, the last Rashi, it says Aval tzaddik ba'al ha'olam Paska hara shenema Zeh yenachmenu. So the Rebbe in a Sikha explains what is this Rashi coming to say when Rashi says Paska hara. What's this Paska hara? It says in the Gemara even more that he brings good to the world. Why is Rashi saying Paska hara? So the Rebbe in the Hadrin, in Chelik Zayin and Parshas Kedoshim, explains the Yisim of the Masechta here as follows: that you have the Mishnah that says this Inyan of Rasha ba'al ha'olam, that the anger of Hashem is in the world, and then you have the Braise. The Rebbe explains the Braise is talking about something which is a little bit more different than what it says in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is talking about Irani Dachas, which is Avodah Zarah, and on this, I actually skipped one line of the Gemara. Did anyone notice? I'm noticing now. I skipped one line of the Gemara. Let's go back.
Yeah, I
you didn't make the Nisim of the Masechta yet. Okay. No, so why don't you stop me? Let's go back up a few lines up. Look, it says in the Gemara, Man Rishayim. It's good that I was saying the Hadran of the Rebbe, otherwise I would have missed this. Man Rishayim. The Gemara asks, who are the Rishayim? Amr Rav Yosef Ganvi. Rav Yosef says, the Rishayim are Ganovim. Okay, so the Rebbe explains, what's the pshat on this? Why is the Gemara asking such a question? Who's Rishayim? Rishayim is for people who do Averis. And the Gemara answers, Rishayim are Ganovim. So the Rebbe explains that just like Avodah Zarah in the world brings the Charain Af Hashem in the world, because when you have the Rishayim that are serving Avodah Zarah, the existence of Avodah Zarah is here that always continues to bring the Charain Af of Hashem in the world even after they're not serving the Avodah Zarah anymore. Same thing regarding Geneva. What's unique about Geneva is when a person steals, even after the act of the Ma'isa Aveda, the Geneva continues until he returns it. Every other Aveda a person does, the act of the Aveda is the Aveda. Then afterwards it's done. But by Geneva, similar to Avodah Zarah, it's a pull and imshaches. It continues the. That's why this is what the Mishnah is saying on it, that this is the Charain Af that exists continuously ba'olam. Then that's what the Mishnah is speaking about. And then the Braisa goes on to say, Rasha ba'al ha'olam, Charain ba'al ha'olam. In the Mishnah it says Charain Af, which refers only to Avodah Zarah. The Gemara says Charain, which refers to any Aveda. And here the Gemara, the Braisa, is saying similar by other Avedas, even though it's not exactly the same, but similar by other Avedas. When a person does an Aveda and he did not do tshuva yet, and he has an obligation to do tshuva, every moment that he doesn't do tshuva, to some extent, it continues. The Aveda is ongoing because he's not doing tshuva. That's what the Gemara is talking about over here. And therefore the Rebbe says, when it says in the Gemara that the tzaddik comes to the world, the Gemara says he brings toiva into the world. But you may think that the Rishayim that brought the Ra into the world, and they did not do tshuva, that still continues. At the same time, the tzaddik also brings goodness into the world. So therefore Rashi adds, no, when the tzaddik comes into the world, Paska hara, he has the koyach to take away that Ra from the Rishayim as well. Not only does he bring in the goodness into the world. The Rebbe adds another point regarding why the Gemara says Ganvi. The word Ganvi, it doesn't say a Gazlan. What's the difference between a Ganav and a Gazlan? A Ganvi is one that comes in hiding, and that means he's lacking a munah. He's afraid of people. He's not afraid of Hashem, but he's afraid of people. That's a real lack of amunah, and that's why it's connected to the union of the Irani Dachas, the Avodah Zarah. It says actually in the Chazal that the person that steals in this way is similar to one that serves Avodah Zarah. That's the diak of the Ganvi. And the Rebbe in the Hadran connects this to the beginning of the Masechta, the name of the Masechta, which is Sanhedrin, and the first Mishnah, where it talks about the different Bezdins of Sanhedrin until the Bezdin of the 71 in the Beis HaMikdash. And there's the Tana Devei Eliyahu, that Rebbe quoted this many, many times, that it says in the Tana Devei Eliyahu that the Sanhedrin would go out of their place in Yerushalayim. They would go with chains around to all cities in Yerushalayim to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to. And the reason for this is, you see in the end of the Masechta, when it says over here that when there's Rishayim in the world, so you may think, okay, a Rasha did an Aveda, it's an isolated act, it affects him himself, and V'zehu. But what you see in the end of the Masechta is that what's going on in the world by individuals affects them, it affects the whole world, ba'olam, and it's ongoing. And therefore the Sanhedrin can't sit inside the Lishkas HaGazas and say that we're going to take care of ourselves, so we're not concerned about other things that are going on in the world. And the same thing also when a tzaddik does a mitzvah, one may say to himself, I could do the mitzvah today, I could do it tomorrow. When the tzaddik comes, he brings taiva for the entire world. It's not just a question for himself. So from the end of the Masechta, you see the importance of the position and the power of people that are in authority, and especially the Sanhedrin, that they have the ability to be a tzaddik ba'al ha'olam, not just to remain in the Lishkas HaGazis, but to go out into the entire world and to bring the taiva ba'olam, and to bring the zeh yenachamenu mimasenu mitzvah yedeinu, to bring Mashiach, as I mentioned, as the Marsha says. That's what the Psiim of the Masechta refers to. Hadran Allah, Masechta Sanhedrin.